Welcome, everybody. We're just going to wait another minute or two just to give people a chance to jump on the webinar, and then we'll get started. So hang tight for just another minute.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like we have several people that just joined the call, so I think we'll go ahead and get started with our webinar today. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you here to learn more about Zegrahm Expedition's upcoming adventure to the Seychelles and Madagascar in collaboration with Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours. But before we get started, I just wanted to go through a couple housekeeping notes for you. Everybody on the line is muted at this time, but if you have any questions at any point during today's presentation, please type them in the questions pane and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our presenters today, Victor Emmanuel and Barry Lyon from Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours. So Victor and Barry, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. I am Barry Lyon. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours, and I am here today with Victor Emmanuel, our company owner and president. And we are pleased to welcome you to this webinar. This is the latest in our series of webinars that promote these exciting trips that we operate in collaboration with Zegrahm Expeditions. And for this particular trip, we are going to be discussing the Seychelles and Madagascar with Aldabra Atoll trip that will operate in the autumn of 2018. And what we're going to do is tell you about the trip. We're going to take you through the cruise route and discuss some of the trip highlights and what we think makes it so special. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Victor Emmanuel.
Well, I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be part of this webinar. I do want to at the outset mention that the Seychelles are so amazing. And this trip, combining the Seychelles with Reunion and Mauritius and Madagascar, is a very rare event. And it's hard to find a trip that goes to those places, a boat that's available. And as a result, even though this trip is over a year away, the boat is almost sold out. However, VIT has a lot of cabins that we are holding that are available. So if you hear this webinar and this appeals to you, this incredible film, I recommend that you call Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours and get one of the cabins that we are holding before the entire ship is sold out. But I've been on many, many trips for 40 years, but I had the pleasure 8 years ago of doing a Seychelles trip. It's one of the best trips of my life. It is an amazing area because it's truly an oceanic area so far from anywhere else that it has many endemic species, has lovely islands and beaches, an amazing ambiance and culture, and a huge effort has been made to save the endemic birds that are there. So it's quite a privilege to see things like the endemic paradise flycatcher that's there, and the rail and Aldabra. And also, although snorkeling is not my main activity, is the best snorkeling of my life. It was absolutely amazing at Aldabra. And the trips that go to Seychelles, not many of them go to Aldabra. And that is one of the key places to go. So I'm going to turn it back over to Barry to start the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Victor. And as we get started here, I'll kindly ask everybody to overlook the fact that I misspelled the word November here when I was putting this slide together. We do, in fact, know how to spell this word at Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours. Anyway, so what I want to do here is, whenever I begin these webinars, I always like to offer sort of a geographical overview of the cruise route because many people know their geography well, others not so well, and particularly a place like the Seychelles Islands, not everybody does know exactly where they are. And in particular, what we're looking at here is a map of the Western Indian Ocean, centering on Madagascar, more or less. And I'm using my cursor here north and east of the tip of Madagascar. This is the area here where the Seychelles Islands and Aldabra are. And so then as I trace the cursor down through the north tip of Madagascar and around the northeast coast of the island, and then over here to these two blobs of land in the middle of or I should say the lower right corner of the map here, these are the islands of Reunion and Mauritius. More specifically, this presents a clearer picture of the cruise route. And what people on this trip will do is they will fly to the Seychelles Islands, and this cluster of islands, this cluster of red dots up here, are what are known as the granitic islands. And these are ancient islands that are composed mostly of granite. The Seychelles overall consist of several island clusters and atolls that stretch from all the way up here, all the way down to Aldabra. And so in rough terms, the Seychelles occupy this broad swath that I'm encircling here with the cursor. What we will do is we will spend a couple of days here in the granitic islands. We will work our way down to a beautiful atoll called Poivre. And then from Poivre, we will work our way down to Aldabra. From Aldabra, we will then go to the north tip of Madagascar, and we will hit a couple of national parks in the northern section of the country, of the island. And then after a few days in this region, we will then cruise southeast toward Reunion, where we will spend a day here. And then we will conclude the trip in Mauritius, and participants will travel home from Mauritius. I will display this map throughout the presentation to continually, in an effort to make sure that everybody is oriented at all times. So you will be seeing this slide a lot.
And let me jump in here and mention that no event trip has ever gone to the northern tip of Madagascar or to Reunion and Mauritius. We do other parts of Madagascar, and there are very special birds in all of those areas that will be seen for the first time on the trip.
Okay, so Mahe, the main island, and Victoria, the capital in the Granitic Islands, is where the trip will begin, and we will spend a night here, and then a following day before we get on the ship, and then head out to sea. And this is the center of the main center of human activity in the Seychelles Islands. But really, once you get to the Seychelles, you know, there's a reason why they're so famous. There are several reasons why they're so famous, and one of which is that they are just so incredibly beautiful. Everywhere you go, you're sort of treated to one paradisical setting after another. It's magic. You know, you have the islands and the islets, the blue water, water of varying shades, the beautiful beaches, as will be demonstrated in some of the later slides that you will see. But after the initial gathering in Victoria, one of the prime activities of the following day will be a trip to the Victoria Botanical Garden. And before I continue any further, I just want to also point out that the nature of this trip is diverse. It is largely a natural history trip, and so the birders and those with an interest in other things like lemurs, the exotic reptile assortment that's found in Madagascar, people will be thrilled by that, snorkeling, etc., coral, fish, all of it. However, there are also some cultural components, and one of the reasons why we really like these trips with Zegrahm is because there is something for everybody. And so whether, you know, if people who might be traveling, husbands and wives or friends or partners or whatever, whether both of them are interested in natural history or not, there is always something for everybody. And as we get later on into the presentation, we will highlight the staff as well.
And let me mention too, on our cruises, we encourage people to come a day early, and we will offer opportunities for additional exploration and birding if you do come a day early. That way you rest up from your flight before you start.
Okay, so for those who are more birding oriented, here's a representation of some of the things that you can see right in Victoria, especially at these beautiful botanical gardens. In addition to the opportunity to see the beautiful tropical flowers and plantings, some of these birds, like the Seychelles blue pigeon in the center, the Seychelles sunbird in the lower left, the Seychelles bulbul in the top right. And then you've got the red fody, the cute little red fody in the top left, and then on the lower right, the big Seychelles fruit bat. And that is always a highlight. Victor referred to the trip that we did a number of years ago, and seeing flights of these bats and seeing them at roost is really something special, mainly because we don't have anything like this here in North America. When we get on the ship in the afternoon of the first day, this is it. It's the Silver Discoverer. It's a beautiful all-suite ship. Toward the end of the presentation, we'll highlight this a bit more. But basically, this is going to be your home for the next 2 weeks. And so it's kind of fun to see it. Just up close like this in advance. Okay, so now once we leave Mahe, we will then spend a following day in the islands of La Digue and Praline. That word looks like Praslin, but it's not. It's Praline. The Seychelles Islands are French, and originally, and so you name it the proper pronunciation, Praline. And we will spend a day, a morning on La Digue, and then an afternoon at Praline. La Digue, this image kind of tells the story. It's a very famous destination, primarily because it is said to have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. In particular, there's a beach called En Source d'Argent, which has appeared in magazines and movies and books, various travel promotional pieces, but it's characterized by these broad white sand beaches with these remarkably sculpted granite boulders and monoliths that project out of the near shore waters and out of the sand. On La Digue, people will have options for doing different things. Those who are interested in birding will do things like go look for the Seychelles the Seychelles Paradise flycatcher, which is a beautiful all-black long-tailed flycatcher. It's pictured on the right here. There are seabirds like this white tern, but for others, it'll just be a chance for those who are more interested in the cultural aspects of the trip, a chance to ride a bike or even just walk around town. There is a vanilla plantation here that people will have an opportunity to visit if they so choose. But of course, it is about the beaches here on La Digue. And, here you just sort of have this postcard perfect, idealistic setting here with the water, the clouds, the palm trees, the sand. This was certainly a highlight on the trip we did a number of years ago. And it's every bit worth the hype. Here's another image, just an interesting sculptured piece of granite here sticking out of the water. In the afternoon, as I indicated, we will go over to Praline. One of the highlights of a visit to Praline is a chance to go to the Valley de Mai National Park, which is a World Heritage Site that protects the famous Coco de Mer palm. In the center of the image here at the bottom, there is a woman holding the palm nut, a palm seed, that some of them weigh up to 40 pounds. It's the heaviest seed of any plant in the world. And so seeing the Coco de Mer palm, and not just the palm, but having a chance to walk through the forest here, it's really quite a wonderful opportunity. Birders, of course, and those interested in natural history will get a kick out of the birds. The top right, the Seychelles parrot, or the Seychelles black parrot. Seeing this bird is one of the real highlights of the day. They're not particularly rare. You do have to look for them, but they're not particularly rare. Your chances of seeing one are good. But because the Seychelles are so remote and so oceanic, that all the islands host populations of breeding seabirds. And so you could be walking along and could see something like a white-tailed tropic bird top right, sitting on a nest. And of course, the Seychelles bulbul, as pictured in the lower right, is a fairly common bird as well. From Praline and the Granitic Islands, we will make our way southwest to Poivre. Looks like Poivre, but it's actually pronounced Poivre. Poivre is a beautiful island. It is it is located in the Almirante Island cluster, some distance to the southwest of the main islands. And the thing with Poivre is that in addition to beautiful beaches and a place to see birds, it is also one of the premier spots in the Seychelles Islands for snorkeling. And primarily this is because there is a giant shelving reef that plunges to a depth of about 6,000 feet off the coast of the island. And so, you know, these pictures kind of tell the story here. You can see the ship in the background, and in the near ground are a couple of zodiacs. And the way that you snorkel on the reef, you get in the zodiacs, disembark the ship, get in the zodiacs, and then motor over to a reef, and then get out into the water. I can tell you from experience that this is an exceptional activity. If you've never snorkeled before, you've got a lot to look forward to. If you have, then you'll know what I'm talking about. The ship's staff stays on the Zodiac to help you in and out of the water, and you have a chance to see this wonderful sight.
I had never snorkeled until I went on our Indonesia trip about 20 years ago, and don't swim until I wore a life preserver. And I found it delightful, very easy. I just floated in my life preserver and looked down at all of these marvelous fish, and of course, as Barry said, the staff is right there to help you. So snorkeling is very, very easy, and it's an amazing experience.
Truly, and you know, there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of fish and coral and sea turtles. It is an exceptional experience, and snorkeling is an activity that's suitable for people of all ages, certainly. From we will then make the long crossing down to Aldabra. And of course, while you're at sea, there's a lot to do. There's lectures by the staff on board the ship, but also there is sea watching, opportunities to see a variety of seabirds while you're making the crossing between the major destinations on the trip. Now, Aldabra Atoll is arguably the most famous of all the locations you will visit, particularly if you're interested in natural history. It is beautiful, beautiful in almost every way. The water, the land, the wildlife, the sky. You know, scenes like this are very alluring, and they are a part of the daily Aldabra experience. Now, when you go to Aldabra, there are three really distinct ways to experience the atoll. One is by land, one is in the water, and the other is by Zodiac cruising. All three methods are captured here, and this image on the top left, really another sort of a fantastic, alluring shot with the light on the water, the squall line on the horizon, the beautiful skies, the rainbows, the white sand beaches. It truly is exceptional. Now, so when you go on shore, for many people, the primary objective will be to see the Aldabra giant tortoise, or Seychelles giant tortoise. The Seychelles Islands and the Galapagos Islands are the only two places in the world to see these giant tortoises. And fortunately, they are fairly common. You will not have a problem seeing a giant tortoise. But in addition to that, there are a number of other birds and animals to look for here. And particularly some of the endemic birds on the lower left, the Aldabra white-throated rail. That's always an important bird. And then above it, the blackbird, the Aldabra drongo. But the the atoll is only 250 miles from Madagascar, and so you have a Madagascar influence on these islands. This dove in the bottom center is the Madagascar turtle dove. Up above it is the Madagascar white-eye. And then up to the top right is the red-headed photy, which is a species endemic to the Aldabra Atoll in nearby Comoro Islands. And of course, on the top left, the bat, the Aldabra flying fox. Seeing these is as exciting as anything else too. Seabirding, of course, is it.
Let me mention that we're getting seabirding. The other thing that we were very fortunate to see, and I think you have a good chance, is the crab plover along the beach there.
Yep, that's right, and we have some nice images to show you there of that bird. But you know, boobies, noddies, frigate birds, great frigate bird and lesser frigate bird, all these things, terns, like this black-naped tern on the top left. There is the Aldabra form of the sacred ibis that is very findable, as is illustrated here on the bottom right side of your screen. But the boobies, red-footed booby, masked booby, it's really just a blitz of seabirds, and it's a wonderful experience. Victor had referred to the crab plover. I know that this is a bird that will be of strong interest to a number of our listeners here, primarily because they're mainly found along the rim of the Western Indian Ocean and in parts of Southern Africa. But you have chances to see concentrations of crab plovers, both in the central lagoon at Aldabra, but also along the coast. Okay, Zodiac cruising. This is another way to experience Aldabra. And the beauty of the Zodiac is that it allows you to get in places that you either cannot visit by foot or just where the larger ship cannot go. And here's a nice representation of what it's like to be out there along the coast of Aldabra, one of the islands, near is obviously a frigate bird nesting colony. And, you know, the Zodiacs take anywhere from 8 to 10 people. They fit very comfortably, and the craft are very sturdy. It's just a wonderful way to get up close and personal with nature. But for many people, the thrill of going to Aldabra will be the chance to get into the water. And you know, I can't speak highly enough of how wonderful this experience is. Victor referred to this a few minutes ago, but you know, the coral, the fish, the rays, the sea turtle, green sea turtles, hawksbill turtles, various species of rays and sharks and fish. You know, seeing stuff like this is to be expected on any of your snorkeling excursions. And of course, you also have got the scenery, these beautiful seascapes with the squall lines and the clouds, and it's just sort of it just seems like a kind of a unique Indian Ocean experience. From Aldabra, we will then travel south to the southeast toward the tip of Madagascar. And one thing that I want to point out about this is that this is a remote part of Madagascar that very few people get to visit. Most of the tourism to Madagascar, including you know, even specifically the ecotourism, is in the center and southern part of the country. And so to have a chance to hit some of these places like Nosy Hara, Mount Amber National Park, Mezoala National Park is quite unique. And I point that out because what you're looking at right here is a route map for the birding tour that Victor Emmanuel Nature Tours offers to Madagascar. I put this up here because I want to contrast that with the map you just saw. Our focus is on the center and southern part of the country, not the far north. And so the opportunity to get all the way to the top of the island is quite unique. Now, so our first stop will be Nosy Hara, and this is an archipelago of limestone islands and islets. There are white sand beaches and things, but it's an opportunity to another opportunity for snorkeling, and it's another opportunity to get on shore, you know, be on secluded beaches, you know, spend time snorkeling. There is diving as well for those who are interested. And again, fantastic coral gardens filled with tropical fish. Birding is always something that that will be offered on these kinds of stops. As you can see right here, there is Madagascar fish eagle that is pictured in the top right image here. We will then travel to to the port of Diego Suarez and Mount Amber National Park. And what we'll do here, this is one of the more diverse regions of Madagascar. We will take four-wheel drive vehicles up into the forest. And, you know, when we get into this part of the trip, one of the real highlights is the opportunity to see lemurs. For those of you who might not be aware of it, lemurs are not found anywhere except Madagascar. And we have a chance to see several types of lemurs on this trip, including the crowned lemur, and such as this animal, and also the Sanford's brown lemur. Here's a representation of the diversity of wildlife. A male crowned lemur on the top right, the Sanford's brown lemur on the top left. But also you will get the Madagascar, this form of the white-throated rail. But there's also just a variety of birds possible, including the amber mountain forest thrush that's pictured in the bottom center. And the possibility exists for a night excursion. We will probably do at least one night excursion in Madagascar, and there is a chance to see something like the Madagascar scops owl. And of course, Madagascar is equally well known for its remarkable reptile fauna. Its composition of geckos and chameleons and skinks and frogs and so on. And including the little dwarf lemur, which I believe is what is on this man's thumb here. The dwarf chameleon, of course.
And chameleons are mainly found on Madagascar.
And, you know, the diversity is sort of endless. The tiny mouse lemur at the top, other chameleons, frogs, lizards. It's just it's all pretty remarkable stuff. From Diego Suarez, we will work our way down towards the port at Nosy Mangabe, where we will spend a couple of days in this region visiting Mesoala National Park. And here is an opportunity to see other species of lemurs, including the black and white rough lemur, such as this animal right here. And again, it's all about the diversity. You'll have lemurs, there are frogs, there are chameleons, there are land crabs. And for those, again, who are more culturally minded, here at Maronet Cetra, there will be an opportunity to visit a village and have a chance to experience the rural life of Madagascar. One of the highlights is going to be a visit to a market where you'll have a chance to see fresh produce and finely woven raffia hats and bags, such as is demonstrated down here on the lower right. And then we've got Mesoala National Park, where we have allocated a day in this beautiful park. And even though it's one of the most remote parts of Madagascar, it happens to hold the largest protected area in Madagascar. And we will enter the forest here. We will spend the day looking for lemurs, birds, other species of mammals. Here's a representation here. The red-ruffed lemur on the top right, lower right, the tenrec, greater hedgehog tenrec in the bottom center, geckos, It's going to be just a total immersive experience in the natural history of this national park in this part of Madagascar.
And another bird out there that we might see is what we do not see on our other Madagascar. Both the north Angus and the huge bill, very funky.
Okay, as we, upon our departure from Madagascar, we will then enter the final stage of the trip, going to the islands of Reunion and Mauritius. And after the ocean crossing to Reunion, we will get there and we will spend a day. And Reunion is a lush island, but it is especially known for its volcanic landscapes. We will have a chance to board a vehicle and get up into the island's interior. In particular, we'll get up to the volcanic crater at Piton de la Fournaise. So it's going to be a sightseeing trip, but also an opportunity to see some birds. So there's at least 6 endemics that are found on the island. This Reunion stone chat here at the top right of the screen is one of them, but stuff like mascarene paradise flycatcher, Reunion harrier, and several other birds will be of primary interest to the birders. Those who are interested in culture will have a chance to take in a nice Creole lunch on this day and visit a vanilla orchid plantation. From Reunion, we will continue on to Mauritius, like I said. And the island of Mauritius, remote, yes, the original, the home of the famous dodo bird, long extinct, but it's also a pretty populous, well-developed place. However, Mauritius, like Reunion, is a volcanic island, and so the island is famous for its beautiful volcanic landscapes, where you have got a lot of waterfalls and cliffs, ridges and peaks and so on. And again, here, as with the other aspects of the trip, there are opportunities for natural history exploration and as well as cultural excursion. Now, this is the final day of the trip, and so what you will do after you disembark the ship in the morning, you will spend the day, most of the day on the island before you transfer to the airport for your departing flight. However, here is a nice representation of some of the landscapes. Like I indicated, Mauritius is famous for its waterfalls. You will see waterfalls. The birders will be hoping to see some of the endemic birds of the island, like the famous pink pigeon in the lower left corner here. But other possibilities are the Mauritius cuckoo shrike and the echo parakeet. Those who are more interested in culture or non-birding experiences will join a sightseeing trip that will get you around much of the island. You'll visit an extinct volcanic crater and also the Grand Bassin Sacred Lake. So something for everybody. Now, I want to talk about the staff here for a minute. We partner with Zegrahm Expedition for a number of reasons, one of which is because their staff is first rate. On a trip like this, the staff will be representing a number of different disciplines. I want to point out this woman on the lower left here, Gemma Jesse, who we traveled with 9 years ago. She is an extraordinary natural history and cultural guide. And I can tell you right now that any trip with her on board is going to be an unforgettable experience. But in addition to Gemma, you've got Jack Grove, who's a longtime marine biologist and staff member of Zegrahm Expeditions. Expedition leader Mike Moore, who we've traveled with before. Rich Pagan, a marine biologist as well. Brent Stevenson is an ornithologist. Representing Bent on this trip is Machiel Valkenburg. Machiel has been with us for several years now. He lives in Europe. And between Machiel and Brent Stevenson, the birding will be well covered, well represented. And toward the beginning of this presentation, I showed you an image of the Silver Discoverer. It is a 120 passenger, all suite ship. It is a beautiful vessel. And this class of ship, this small adventure cruise ship, is an ideal way to travel. You have got you've got enough people to keep things interesting and lively, but not so many that it disrupts your sense of intimacy. We have traveled on this type of ship for many, many years, decades, love them, and the Silver Discoverer is an excellent vessel. Interior shots, you can see some of the staterooms, some of the cabins. Some have got portholes, some have got broad windows, others have got ceiling-to-floor windows. Outside, or I should say, other public areas of the ship. Here's the passenger lounge and bar on the top right. A portion of the dining room here on the top left. There are viewing decks outside. There's a swimming pool for those who are interested in taking advantage of that opportunity. As I said, it's quite a beautiful ship. So, here are the details. Seychelles and Madagascar with Aldabra Atoll. There are the dates. Again, this trip will be led by event leader Machiel Valkenburg. And as Victor mentioned, the space is limited on this trip. It's proven to be very popular, but Vent has space reserved until sometime in November, I believe, early to mid-November. So if you are considering taking this trip, we encourage you to register soon. Contact Greg Lopez or Patrick Swaggerty in our office to register, or if you have more questions or request further information.
I can't recommend this trip highly enough. I hope you will all go on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry, and thank you, Victor. That was so informative, even for someone who works at Zegrahm, been here for a number of years. We have a couple of questions that came up throughout the presentation, so let me ask those of you guys. The first question is, and please forgive any pronunciation errors, what are the odds of seeing the helmeted banga on the Madagascar portion?
The odds of seeing the helmeted banga?
Well, it's not a common bird. I would have to consult with our Madagascar experts on that. If you send us an email, we'll get back to you on that. I would say maybe 50-50. We are right in the heart of its range there.
Okay, perfect. And we have the email address here, so we'll follow up on that. And then the next two questions are of a similar vein. So the first one is on La Digue. What's the possibility that a person could do both birding and spend time on the beaches when we're there?
Okay, that's an easy question. That's very doable, because the thing is that really, for somebody who's interested in birding, there are two birds primarily that you would look for there: the paradise flycatchers, and then also a bird called the Seychelles swiftlet. And there is not far, once you get off the ship and go into the town, you can just a fairly short distance on foot, you go to a place called the Views Nature Reserve. And the flycatcher, it's not a very large reserve, it's a small forest patch. The flycatcher is very gettable there, and the Seychelles swiftlet can be seen anywhere on the island. So if somebody wanted to start by going to see the birds, and then once they've seen to head to the beach, that is definitely doable.
Great. And then a similar question on Aldabra, is it possible to bird from zodiacs and snorkel, or do you have to choose one activity over the other?
Well, both they're both offered. In other words, some of the zodiac excursions are dedicated exploratory excursions where you are going along the coast and seeing birds. The seabirds and so on that are sitting up in the bushes and the trees. whereas others are dedicated snorkeling excursions. With, you get into the Zodiac with the purpose of going snorkeling. I'm sure Zegrahm could confirm, but they run lots of Zodiacs, and so there will be Zodiacs for the purpose of snorkeling and Zodiacs for the purpose of birding.
And there's not that many species of birds. It's not like they but they're very special birds, and some of them are very different. And I think that'd be easy to do.
Okay, thank you. Next question, is fossa possible in North Madagascar?
I'm sorry, we missed that. Is what possible?
Is fossa.
Oh, the fossa. Is that?
Yeah.
It's a very different animal to see. It's very secretive. I think it probably is possible, but I think it's very doubtful that you would see it.
Okay. And then the last question here, and this is a good question. Are only bent guests eligible to do the birding excursions, or do all passengers do them? So both Zegrahm and bent.
Okay.
And how does that operate?
On all of our cruises, all passengers are welcome on their birding trips. It's not possible, and we would not want to exclude anyone. There would be the vet leader, and there will also be the Zegrahm leader. We have 2 bird leaders on the trip. Depending on the size of the group, if you're in an area with trails, you might break up, and one group go one way and one group the other. But all passengers are welcome on the birding trips. Mainly the birders are the vet leaders. So there could be other people on the trip that want to join.
Great. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for all the questions as well. I didn't mention at the beginning, but we have recorded this webinar, and it will be available on Vent's YouTube page shortly. So I would check back the next couple of days for that. So thank you again for joining us today, everyone. And if you have any questions, you can just contact Vent's office. Thanks, Barry. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.